You were working for a Fortune 100 company, earning $200,000 plus a year, living what everyone calls the dream life, but you still said that there's more than this. Since then, you've built a real ownership in investments, hospitality, freedom. You've engineered that specifically by design. How do you pivot from sales to marketing?
The moment when I realized that the more money you make doesn't necessarily improve the quality of your life. It wasn't one singular thing that got me to where I want to be. It was a whole bunch of experiences, doing things, pivoting.
What would you tell somebody if they were on the fence about quitting a high-paying job?
You got to go for it, because I know personally I would feel much better is if it didn't work out, but at least I know I tried, than staying in my job and knowing I never tried.
Why do you think communities and masterminds are so important?
It puts you in the proximity of other people who are where you want to be. There's just something about being able to talk to people that have done the thing and get the intricacies that a course could never replace, or a YouTube could never replace.
Do you think AI has killed copywriting jobs?
We all get the same 24 hours. So why is it that some people build so much more with them? I'm Brian Coons, and this is the Builder Nation podcast, where we talk to top performers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries to uncover the architecture of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Builder Nation podcast. Today we got my man, Brandon Hien, and a 2021 Wharton study found that happiness keeps rising with income, even past $100,000 a year, but meaning doesn't. So you can buy convenience, but not purpose. And that's where a lot of high performers are trapped. They get the six figures, they get remote, and they travel when they can, but they still feel empty. So you were working for a Fortune 100 company, earning $200,000 plus a year, living what everyone calls the dream life, but you still said that there's more than this. So since then, you've built a real ownership in investments, hospitality, freedom. You've engineered that specifically by design. So I want to dive into, when did you realize that money was a box that was checked, but the freedom wasn't checked?
Yeah, so I would say the moment when I realized that the more money you make, doesn't necessarily improve the quality of your life. It was probably the second year that I was making over $200,000 a year at Cisco. I was in tech sales, and 3 years into that working at that company, I catapulted to making over $200K a year. I was 25, and I won't lie, that was awesome. It was super exhilarating to have those big checks coming in, have the awesome apartment, all that. But it was the second year in that role. I remember I would just wake up every day feeling lethargic, right? I was selling IT equipment, so I was talking to IT directors every day on calls about Wi-Fi, and I just had no interest in any of that. And I was like, man, is this what I'm going to do forever? Because I was essentially, at the top level of what you could be for a salesperson. So there wasn't really anywhere to go from there. And then still, I just didn't want to sell Wi-Fi my whole life.
Right.
So
let's start there. How did you get to the point you were at the top percent of performers so early on?
So I got into this early in career program where, you essentially get catapulted up through the company. And at the time, I had just quit 2 startup companies because I always wanted to build a company from the bottom up. That was my dream. I never wanted to be a cog in the machine. But a year out of college, I had quit 2 companies, both startups. So I found an opportunity at this large company. And the program, was super hard to get into. About 20,000 people a year apply and only about 50 people a year get in. But I just went so hard on the interview process and put everything I had in, because I felt like after quitting 2 jobs, I had to make this work. Otherwise, I thought my life was going to be over, which is funny to think about looking back on. But it was really, really putting so much effort into getting that job, and then just, putting everything I had into it, which is kind of what I always do, and taking risks. I accepted a job offer that was technically a double promotion. And actually, my current manager told me that I wasn't ready and didn't want to let me get promoted into the new job. But I did it anyways, went into a job where I was, one of the youngest people, and it worked out. So
Why do you think high income is such a trap?
I think high income is such a trap because you don't know what you can do to replace it. A ton of opportunities. There aren't a ton of things you could do to truly make a lot of money, especially when you're working a job, specifically when you're working in a job. So, when you're making a ton of money, you realize that there's not a lot of other options. It's very hard to replace that with passive income because you need so much to replace a high income. And then you feel like you don't really know where else to go, and you feel stuck in your industry.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've never heard it put that way, but it's a lot of people just don't even know where to go. I remember, so my background being in the military, so many people get stuck there because they don't even know what else kind of is out there to do, right? And so they get into this cog and they don't think about the specifics and the intention behind saving money around getting some of these other pieces in place for you to have an exit, right? And so you iterated a lot of times. You went to, you were sales for some some startup companies, and then you went over to working at a Fortune 100 company. Like, take me through the decision making of why you went to so many jobs, even though you were performing at a high level at each one.
So the first company was about a 400 person startup. Hated all the leadership, frankly. Actually, I was in a cohort of 15 and I quit after 5 months, and I was the 10th person to quit. That's how bad of a company it was.
Wow.
I just didn't believe in the company. And ironically, I thought the company was too big. I said the market was saturated, which wasn't necessarily true. But the company I went to next was an 8-person startup. The CEO and VP of sales were 24 years old. I was 22. And I thought it was a better opportunity for me to really make an impact and build a company from the ground up, because I thought the 400-person company was too big. And then the reason I left that second job was ultimately the product was not what I thought it was when I originally joined.
Yeah.
They ended up moving the company to New York, and I didn't want to move to New York because I didn't believe in it enough. So
okay, so there was a few things there. You touched on one that I think is two that are really important. Culture is one, where if the culture doesn't fit, it doesn't really matter how much money you make. It's just not, you're not going to have fun there. And my last job, I stayed there way longer than I should have because I just thoroughly loved the people that were there. And then those people started exiting for different reasons. And it got to a point where I was like, why am I even here anymore? And because it's like, that's such a big thing. So if you don't have the culture, so that's a big piece. And then, first of all, I was like, you said 400 people. I'm like, is that still a startup at that point? That's a lot of people. But going to an 8-person, what did you like differently between such a large one and such a small startup? Because sure, people, when they leave, some of them may buy businesses, some of them, exiting these high jobs, but some of them might create a startup, right? And so I noticed that there's different size companies, and I've talked to somebody who Ryan Garland, I was just with him yesterday, and he has $500 million under management, but I asked him how many people he has on staff, and he has 15.
Wow.
So it's like, you don't need numbers of employees specifically. So what was the difference? Like, what were the big takeaways of why you liked the 8-person company more, or if you did?
Yeah. So the reason I liked that company more is because you felt like you had way more impact on the business. So everything you did was noticeable within the business, had direct access to the co-founders, and just played so much more pivotal role than, even at a 400-person company. What you do doesn't matter a whole bunch, right? Like, you're so far down the people who are actually moving the company. And that just goes back to me always just wanting to have an actual impact in what I do.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Being able to talk to somebody, and that's my favorite point that you just made, was like, being able to talk to the person that actually makes the final decision means that you might actually have real change at the company. Like, you can affect what they do, where and I saw this, the company I worked at was a startup. I was like the 5th employee, and we grew to like 45 on staff, and the time it takes to turn the ship takes so much longer. Where up front it's like, hey, we want to do this thing, sweet, we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
But the larger you get, the more change management becomes a thing, and that's like a real thing that I don't think people think about when in business.
Yeah.
Which do you have like any employees now or anything, or is it just you right now still?
So in our company, there's 2 co-founders. There's me, an executive assistant, and then we have operations people who actually run the hostels.
Okay.
But in terms of the investment company, it's the 2 owners, me and a EA.
Okay, yeah. So right now it's like it's agile, right? Like it's very easy to kind of make decisions, and it doesn't affect people's. This is how I've done things for 2 years already. Where when you start to grow, I think that's a really pivotal, important thing to decide on how you want your company to grow and what the infrastructure is that you need.
Yeah.
Because most people think they see a number and they're like, oh, dude, I want to own a million units and things like that. I'm like, dude, the infrastructure behind that, or some software companies, like, there's so much that goes into that. So I think that's really important when somebody's like starting a business. Take me into a little bit of like the operation you have now. We're going to jump there for a little bit. So you have hostels. Kind of explain that to me and what that looks like.
Correct. Yeah. So I joined this company last year. There's 2 co-founders. They were real estate investors. They started with Airbnbs, wanted to move into apartments, realized that the cash flow on apartments is minuscule compared to Airbnbs, especially out on Hawaii. So they stumbled into building hostels, knew nothing about hostels, and then transformed the Maui location into the #1 voted small hostel by Hostel World within a couple couple years. So we currently have 2 hostel properties on Maui, and we're looking to purchase more hotels primarily at this point, either boutique or flagged. So really my goal is, I'm in charge of all the marketing for the owner's personal brands, for the properties themselves. And then we have a podcast called the Hotel Investor Playbook. So I help with everything behind the scenes related to marketing and systems and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting. So what's the difference between a hostel and a hotel?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest difference is, one, in a hostel, you have bunk beds in the rooms, and there's theoretically 6 strangers in a room in bunk beds. So the advantage of that is you can take a hotel that may only do $150 per night and put 6 bunks in there that are $50 a night each. So it's more affordable for travelers and it's higher revenue for the owners of the building. And then the other big difference is that hostels are specifically built around community and helping people meet when you get there. So, in a hotel, you kind of just check into your room, you do your own thing. With a hostel, there's a big common area, big kitchen, and then there's daily activities for all the guests. So we take our guests on tours around the island on a big van we have. We take them to beach day. We have margarita night where everyone just parties in the lobby. And there's a lot of solo travelers who come. So it's really meant for people who are solo traveling or just traveling with one friend and they want to meet others. So it's like a whole concierge service. You can arrive anywhere, any city in a hostel, and they're automatically going to have all the best activities in that, city planned for you. And it's very normal and encouraged to go talk to strangers.
Yeah. So take me through like the marketing on something like that. Obviously, it's a lot of different people. It had very similar demographic, I'm assuming. So take me through the marketing of a hostel.
Yeah. So primarily on social media, Instagram and TikTok, these days, those are, how Gen Z and millennials are wanting to book properties, a lot of them. So I find people to both in-house social media creators and influencers, but I'll talk about the in-house social media creators. So we have one on each property. And it's also common for hostels to be run by volunteers. So we have 16 volunteers who basically get a free bed in the property next door, and they work 20 to 25 hours a week for free.
Nice.
So, the person will be staying for free, and then they'll be making content for them. I have different pillars for them to follow. So like different pillars would be budget travel videos, premium hostel content, because we are like more of an upscale hostel, and then community driven content, which is showing people coming alone and making friends, and then like tips and tricks around Hawaii so that we can reach people who may not necessarily be looking for our hostel, but they're looking for things to do in Hawaii because they're coming and then they stumble upon our account.
That's interesting. So you kind of gloss over it because it's probably so natural to you, but for the marketing, it's like you're literally just you're marketing the natural solution to the problem they're going to have. They're like, if I travel, how am I going to be, I'm not going to know anyone. Oh, well, if I get there, like, I'm not going to know where to go. Like, I've never traveled alone before. And so you're kind of like marketing the solution to their issue. That seems like a very viable way to whatever industry you're in to be very effective.
Yeah, exactly. And the other point is it doesn't always specifically have to be about the property, right? Like you can make videos about the top 5 waterfalls, and maybe someone's planning on going to Hawaii in 6 months. They don't know where they're going to stay. They stumble across that and then find our page.
Yeah. Well, and then that makes sense, right? It's like you're focused. Most people will say don't focus on, focus on the problem that they have. And or I guess the better way to put it is like, you're not selling the hostel, you're selling what the hostel allows you to do. And that's really how the positioning that most people take when they're marketing is you're not selling a timeshare, you're selling what the timeshare gives you. You're not selling floor cleaner, you're selling a clean floor.
Exactly.
Hey guys, if you're a business owner, high income earner, or investor who's been thinking about getting into real estate development but don't have the time to manage the process, this is for you. My company partners with people like you to help unlock the potential of your properties or even source and manage new small scale development projects. We manage hundreds of ADUs and infill development projects across Southern California, and our team knows how to simplify the process so you can benefit from the upside without managing contractors, permits, or design headaches. Whether you want to develop your own property, explore ways to offset taxes, or just learn how the development model works, head to thebuildernation.com/partner. That's thebuildernation.com/partner, and see how we can help you build more with the same 24 hours. Now back to the show.
Yeah, that's a really interesting position. So you went from sales to marketing. How do you pivot from sales to marketing?
So I started marketing side hustles probably only a year out of college. So I graduated in 2017. Quickly, as I was switching jobs, I quickly realized that all these tech companies were boring. Like none of them had anything I was interested in. And I knew I didn't want to do that forever. So I started trying to figure out how to make money online. And back then in like 2018, 2019, the hot things were e-commerce, drop shipping, and copywriting. I was driven to copywriting, which is essentially writing ads, email campaigns, landing pages, because it would allow me to live anywhere in the world and not be on sales calls.
Yeah.
So after a couple years of struggling to get an online gig with that, I joined this copywriting mastermind and ended up networking my way into my first copywriting gig, writing for an online sales coach. Eventually quit that after a year because I realized the income cap was too small. Then, since I love traveling, I was working remote at my corporate job, and I started making YouTube videos, travel vlogging, just for a year because I thought I wanted to be a YouTuber. So that's how I learned how to film and edit. I was in a YouTube creator mastermind. Again, realized that all YouTubers are broke. So then I decided to get into real estate because I was like, oh, real estate people must make money. Joined another mastermind for that. And that's where I met, and I actually started wholesaling for a bit. So I had a wholesaling business that I got off the ground virtually, but I met the owner of the hostels that joined the group, and, we connected. And over, a couple months, they wanted to bring on a head of marketing. And since I had that digital marketing experience and real estate experience and had traveled all over the world staying in hostels, it was kind of a perfect fit. So it wasn't one singular thing that got me to where I want to be. It was a whole bunch of experiences, doing things, pivoting, that finally led me to finding the perfect combination.
Okay. And do you think AI has killed copywriting jobs?
I think it's definitely hurt copywriting jobs. I am sort of an AI hater, even though I do use AI almost every day. I think a lot of business owners may try to take over copywriting and think they don't need a copywriter or a marketer, but it's all trash. Like, I'm sure you see online, it's complete garbage everywhere. People writing all in the same style because it's AI, and it's horrible. So first I didn't use AI to write. Then I started using it way too much because it allowed me to produce so much. And now I'm going back to writing initial drafts by myself, writing hooks by myself, using my own creativity and using AI to sort of enhance it or clean it up. But yeah, I definitely don't think copywriting is as in and of itself, it's not as much of a side hustle as it used to be. But having good writing skills and not relying on AI is, I think, becoming more valuable when all the scripts and all the captions and all the writing just looks like absolute garbage.
Yeah. So what makes good copywriting?
I would say the ability to, well, first off, these days is just the ability to look unique, or to look and sound unique, right? Because if you notice, when people just use ChatGPT to write, it follows all the same formulas. So everything starts to look and feel the same, and you may not notice it, but you're just going to skim over it. So I would say the ability to weave personal stories into copywriting, something that AI can't replace, and really creating powerful hooks that are driven around personal stories and things that you've experienced in real life. Because people don't want another article or video just about 3 tips to do X.
Yeah, statistics and...
Exactly. They want to hear, so for example, they don't want to hear, these are 3 good places to work remote. They want to hear, hey, I'm a 30-year-old guy who quit his $250,000 a year sales job, and I've been living out of a suitcase for a year. And these are the 3 places where I've been able to be most productive while working and having the most fun. Yeah. And the concept is the exact same, but it's how you write about it. Yeah, just straight up, like, did you see how the second intro was someone who wants to be like me would be way more interested in reading that than just 3 tips.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, and a really good little tip for everyone is, like, AI, for me, like, I don't feel like AI is inherently bad or going to take jobs. And so it's like copywriting, for example. Like, I don't think that it's going to take the copywriting jobs away. I think that it's going to make the good copywriters more efficient so they can do more copywriting for other people, and it'll kind of like reach this equilibrium. And that goes for I think that goes for a lot of different jobs. It's like, it's going to take the bottom percentage out, and it's going to make the top percentage more efficient so they can service more people with those jobs.
Exactly. And I actually made an Instagram video about this every day, but you may think AI is going to make you better at something, whether it be copywriting or website development. But if you actually have no skills in that area and you're just using AI to its baseline capabilities, the entire bar is being raised. So your abilities really are not being raised at all, because everyone else's are being raised at the same rate. Right.
It doesn't improve your skills, it improves your efficiency. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to put it, is like, you can dump out a lot of shit, but if it's shit, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. And it's like, goes for any sort of job with that. So
What are some ways in your business outside of just like chatting with ChatGPT that you're using AI?
One thing that I really like to use AI for is when I have an idea and I want to write about it, I'll pop open ChatGPT and immediately turn on voice recording and just brain dump all my thoughts so that it can organize for me and put it in a good structure. Because I'm sure most people can relate that you go on a walk and all of a sudden you start having all these amazing ideas of things you want to do for your business. But by the time you get home and get back to your computer, you start to forget it. So I like to turn on the voice recorder, brain dump everything, and then use that to keep track of my ideas, expand on ideas, and help to be the basis for content.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. I think one of the most powerful features is the fact that like you can talk 4 times faster than you can type. So by being able to just brain dump, number one, you're so much more efficient. But number two, it's starting to understand your tone of voice, which I think that's a very understated thing going even into copywriting. Is or emails or whatever, it's when ChatGPT or whatever database you're using for AI starts to understand how you speak, you now can say, make this in my tone of voice, and it gets a hell of a lot closer than it would otherwise.
Yeah, ChatGPT has made some really funny quips or like one-liners in video scripts I've made, so...
That's really good. So moving forward, right? So you have the hostel, but how, like you've been in a lot of communities. So why do you think communities and masterminds are so important?
Yeah, communities and masterminds are so important because it puts you in the proximity of other people who are where you want to be. And all the information you could possibly need is already out there on the internet, but being around others not only gives you the motivation to see it's possible, but there's just something about being able to talk to people that have done the thing and get the intricacies that a course could never replace or YouTube could never replace. Like I got my first copywriting gig, not from the information that the copywriting mastermind taught me, but from flying out to Arizona, going to the seminar and then going to a poker game after and networking my way multiple levels into, getting a gig. I got my gig now, not from information I gained from the mastermind, but from I met the owner of the investment company in the mastermind. That is without a doubt the biggest benefit is meeting people, putting you in the right rooms, because life really is all about who you know.
Yeah, you make a good point there with the people. Obviously, everyone knows like your network is your net worth, whatever you want to say. But I made a post recently about like books are dead right now. Like I think that there's a ton of good information in books. However, there's a lot of communities right now where obviously some communities are potentially bullshit, but like if you get in the good one with the high performers, they've probably read all of those books cumulatively. But the difference is most of the people at the top are the 1%, where the books I believe are written for the 99%. So the issue is that you have a 1% problem where the book gives you the solution to the 99% problem. You put yourself in a room with the other people that have the knowledge and context of the books. They can make your problem, they can give you a 1% problem answer. And I think that's a really important difference. So you've gotten in really high performing rooms. You're in Action Academy, right?
Yep.
So tell me what some of the best things about Action Academy have been.
Yeah, so without a doubt, the best part about Action Academy is the people. I joined there completely at the bottom of the totem pole of the group. Basically no real estate experience. I had just bought my long-term rental, and I spent my first 3 months just networking with as many people as possible. I talked to 50 people before I stopped tracking it, and you meet people who own apartments, who own self-storage unit, who own hotels, and you don't even know that like regular people own those things.
Right. You don't think about it.
Yeah. So it's without a doubt people, and then now I'm at the point where I'm probably on the middle of the totem pole in the group, so I can give back about things I've learned who are coming in the group. It's quite literally the best community that I've ever been a part of, where all the members are so engaged. Brian, the guy who runs it, it's his full-time thing, so he puts all his energy and passion into creating that community. And since the community is the best part, the fact that it has the best community is what makes it my favorite.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like selfishly asking because I'm actively considering it. I got on a call with Fatih, and we've been chatting, and so I'm like kind of on the fence about it. So I'm curious, like for you, like you've now bought hostels, and that is kind of like buying a business, but it's all real estate. Like how specific is it to real estate versus, for me, it's like I'm starting a business, right? Where some other people are buying businesses to replace income. Would somebody like me who's starting a business benefit from it?
Yeah. So you're starting your own business. Yeah. I mean, I would say, so it depends. Like what are you trying to get out of it? Like
that's the question for me. Like the things that seem like the most important are the people. I think there's a lot of operators there and a lot of people like with capital partnering and things like that. So that's interesting to me. And that's really the main reason as I'm doing what I'm doing, growing essentially a development company, right? It's real estate, but there's so much more to it that's business. And so more of it for the tangibility of like how so many people are, how do you run businesses? Because whether you're doing a hostel, whether you're doing self-storage, or selling doors, it doesn't matter. It's something not in real estate, right? Like business is business.
Yeah. So in that case, yeah, there's a lot of high level business owners in there. I'd say the group probably split between like 30 to 40% entrepreneurs, business owners, 50 to 60% people who are trying to get out of their W-2, but are also very successful in what they're doing. And then another cool thing about Action Academy is that a lot of people partner up with each other. So people who are at the higher level, they find people who are hungry and willing to work and bring them onto part of their company. So a lot of people buy businesses together, do deals together, end up working within each other's businesses. So
okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about partnering on buying businesses?
I think it's great. You can have complementary skills, and I think it's just more fun to do stuff with a partner, right? At the end of the day, you're not all by yourself. You have someone to win with, someone to go through the bad times with. So, I enjoy working with the owners of our company. So I think it's cool to be able to do stuff together.
Yeah. So as you were, looking at exiting your career, what was the final stepping stone where you were ready to leave?
Yeah. So the final stepping stone was actually having a viable way to make money, because the previous 2 years I'd been doing copywriting, which didn't pay enough, and then YouTube, which didn't pay enough. And when I was ready to quit my job, I'd actually built a wholesaling business. So I was looking for the quickest way to make cash flow and decided to do wholesaling. So I started in January of 2024, and it was honestly one of the hardest things I ever did to get it off the ground. I joined another mastermind, paid $10K, and then had spent $28K in marketing before I closed a single deal. So I was almost $40K out the door, and I was like, dude, this is impossible. I don't see how I'm ever going to close a deal. But then that July, I closed my first deal. And then after that, the doors kicked open. Like I was getting contract like week after week. And I was like, okay, this is all I need. All I needed was proof of concept to be able to quit. I have the savings. I've got this working. So I could have kept wholesaling if I wanted to, made a few $100,000 a year, but then I would just be in the same position I was at in my job, doing something I didn't really like. So I met the owner of the hotel investment business around that same time, decided to work with him instead of wholesaling. But it was really just having the proof of concept on something that was the final thing that allowed me to quit.
Yeah, so you made a couple, like even the leap there, like you finally got it up and running and you're like, yeah, I can make a shit ton of money at this, and you still left it like pretty soon after. Like how did you get the balls to jump so many times and abandon ship and start the next thing to find what you're looking for?
Yeah, because at this point in my life, I'm just all in on doing stuff that I actually want to do. Doing stuff that I enjoy, building businesses that I enjoy. And yeah, at the end of the day, that was it. I didn't like wholesaling, so it doesn't matter how much money I was going to make. I believe deep down that if I keep doing things that I want to do, eventually the money is going to come, because I make significantly less now than I've ever made since I graduated, basically. I mean, except for like the first year out of college. But I'm just like so all in on living the life that I want and doing the things that I enjoy. And because of that, it's going to work out, is what I believe.
I'm going to school right now, and I had a professor last semester that asked something. He asked us, if you had a high-paying job that you didn't like, would you stay? And the next day, I actually quit my job.
Wow.
So
oh my gosh.
That was not the only factor, but that was a big omen. Or one of the pieces that kind of gave me that, made me ask that question. And I think like you were living it is like you were ripping money, dude. Like you were making a shit ton of money. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that it's okay to make less money for a period of time while you're figuring it out, if you're happy, because there's a thing between time and energy where you can be spending more time on something, but if it doesn't take as much energy, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an important point. Like for me, I have to see the potential of being able to make a lot more money. Like I'm not just like a hippie who's like, I'm okay with just making a few $1,000 just because I'm quote unquote happy. Like what I'm doing now gives me the potential to make more money than I would ever be able to make making a few $100,000 a year in corporate America. So having that vision of what's possible is also key. It's not, for me, it's not just about, because I wouldn't be truly happy if I didn't have that long-term, capabilities to chase after.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody if they were on the fence about quitting a high-paying job?
First, I guess I would ask why. If Well, one, I think I would ask them to look at the time frame of how long they have to make something work, because I've talked to people who are in their first year of making a lot of money and they don't have hardly any runway. Then I think it makes a lot less sense. Not that I tell them, not that I wouldn't tell them what not to do it, because I always say chase your dreams, but I would tell them you got to go for it, because I know personally I would feel much better is if it didn't work out, but like at least I know I tried, than staying in my job and knowing I never tried, because that's one thing that was just like nagging me for years at my job, is I knew I wasn't living up to my full potential and I just wasn't going after what I really wanted. So I don't have that monkey on my back even more, even though there's like obviously a lot of other stressors working in a very small company and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's funny too, because you kind of mentioned it right there, is you could always go back to the fucking high paying job. Like
Yeah.
you have that option. It's not like you just like lose your skill sets, that you prove it out in somebody like you proved it out in multiple models, not just like, hey, I was really good at selling this one thing door to door. It's like, no, you were just fucking good at making money. Is
Yeah.
what it seemed like.
Yeah, some people do say that you can always go back. In my head, I'm telling myself I'll never go back to tech sales. Like, even though it is a great career, I do think it's the best career if you want a job. I'm fully committed to making life work, doing that things that I want to do, and I do have an extremely long runway because of my career, so I don't regret working there as long as I did. But yeah, I think also not giving yourself the plan B in your head is what helps you achieve extremely hard things. Like my last year when I was wholesaling, like I could not imagine a plan B. I was like, this has to work. I'll go broke before this doesn't work. Like it
Right.
just has to.
I feel like the quitting the job thing, when you have this job that pays pretty well and things like that, when you quit, you see the other side. There isn't a going back. It's like you take the pill, like the red or green or the red or blue pill. There's just once it clicks, there's no going back.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I could never go back to a high paying tech sales job.
Yeah. So moving forward, what does this next piece look like? You have some hostels. Is it just all in there, or are there other pieces to the puzzle?
No, so we're the hostel. No, so we're open to hotels. There's just a lot more opportunities to buy hotels, right? A hostel will crush when you find the opportunity, but we're open to buying hotels, and we're even open to raising money for other asset classes too, because that's really our biggest skill set is being able to raise money and market. So yeah, we're open to diversifying outside of that asset class, but we're also looking at hotels. And I think what the next step in our business is to get the next project and then document it daily, because I believe that social media is very powerful right now, and especially people who are documenting the story of renovating a project, whether it be an Airbnb, a hotel, or anything. So once we get a project, I'm essentially going to be on site documenting the entire thing every single day, and I think that's really, I know it's going to blow up the eyeballs on our companies and help us expand massively.
Yeah, that's important. I think the documenting the journey, and you kind of have the background with the YouTube. So if somebody, not specifically starting a YouTube channel, but if somebody is doing something in a business, or they understand that documentation is important along the journey, what's the best way for them to do it without it feeling like such a massive hurdle?
I would say you got to rip the Band-Aid off as soon as possible, because it is very nerve-wracking to start posting content. Like anybody, like when I posted my first video a year ago, I was so nervous, even though I make sick videos. Like my video production abilities are significantly above the average person's, especially someone who's never posted content before. And I still get nervous to post stuff, or at least in the beginning I was super nervous, and I still do get nervous, but you get less nervous over time to post stuff. And people's biggest challenge is mindset. It's not the ability to create content. You don't have to create amazing content for social media to have an impact. The biggest challenge is getting over the courage of posting, no matter who you are. You could be a 8-figure millionaire who's had so much success in life and still be terrified to post content. And the 21-year-old college kid who's out there putting himself out there is going to open up more opportunities just because he has the guts to do it. So the faster you can rip the Band-Aid off, the better. And the quality does not matter. Just putting yourself out there on social media has significant benefits.
Yeah, I love that. So one final question for you. You have 3 years to live. You still have to make money during that time. What are you doing and why?
I would probably, if I had 3 years to live and I still had to make money, I would just travel around the world and probably film documentaries in crazy countries. That's kind of what I've always said I wanted to do, is make documentaries or like films in very off the grid countries, and just create awesome cinematic videos.
Why is that? Do you want to share it with other people, or?
Yeah, I think so, because I've had so many like backpacking trips where I'm just going to all these crazy-ish countries like Thailand, Colombia, Peru, and it's just always so fascinating to me how other people in other parts of the world live. And then I love like sharing. I love creating videos. Like I love the YouTube videos I've made so much, and like giving people those experiences through videos, and like creating emotions through like storytelling in videos I make. So I would say that's my favorite thing to do.
Nice. And so if somebody is thinking about traveling outside of the country for the first time, where should they go and why?
So my 2 favorite places that I've been was Thailand, just because it's so different. Like it's so much different than like even Europe. It's a completely different culture, and it's very easy. Like you'd be surprised how easy it is for a first time travel to go through Thailand, because of just it's a very traveled destination. And then my favorite place on this side of the world is Colombia. There's a great digital nomad or remote worker community there. Yeah, and surprisingly, it's the cheapest and the funnest of all the countries in that area, which is a crazy combo, because usually cheap and fun doesn't go together. Yep. But yeah, the infrastructure is just good. It's like it is a third world country, but there's like you can go to like 5-star dinners for like less than $100. The nightlife is amazing. There's like a lot of cool people to hang out with, and it's a good combination of being in somewhere that's different than America, but still having all the benefits like nice restaurants, nice nightlife, good infrastructure to work, cool people, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love it, dude. So people want to get in touch if they want to see your hostels. What's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, so that would be Instagram. You can just type my name in. It's Brandon Hien, Hien.
Nice, dude. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, sharing the story, sharing the love.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys in the next episode. Appreciate it, man.
Sweet.
That's it for this episode of the Build a Nation podcast. If it gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's leveling up. Until next time, keep building.